Right, it's time to do a little bit of work on the Acclaim bodywork. Okay, so I haven't done a lot on the Acclaim recently, but there's not really a lot to do. I've actually sanded the whole bodywork down from here back, just to give it all a key. I've done that with 500 wet and dry paper, and basically what I've got to do now is tackle the little bits of rust, like here for example. There's not a lot of rust, but it's just going to treat this with a rust remedy, which, if there are any little specks of rust that I can't actually get out with the sanding process or with a wire wheel, I'll just treat them, and what I've got is a rust cure, rust remedy solution. I don't know if you can see that there. It's a rust. It's called rust remedy, and what this basically does, once you paint this on, it turns the actual rust into a solid surface that won't rust anymore. It basically alters the chemical composition of the rust. So that's what I'm going to do there with these little bits, and then you can obviously put your primer over the top, and don't forget I'll be putting filler primer over the top of this, and also gently rubbing that down just to make sure that we are okay. But if any rust has bubbled up, first of all you want to give it a good sand down anyway, and get rid of any high spots that are there, and failing that you can actually tap down and just lower the high spots, and basically then paint this solution on, leave it for 15 minutes, and it will convert your rust anyway. So that's if you're not actually, don't forget this is sort of a touch-up repair. This isn't a full classic car restoration repair. If I wanted to take everything back to bare metal, that's a very big job. We're just preparing this paintwork to make it look a lot more decent than what it was, and making it into a usable classic with a little expense. So here we go. So I'm going to carry on, start doing this now, and I'll show you basically what I'm doing. Well, as I said, I've basically rubbed this area down, and I've filled where I needed to fill, because this is where the actual track runs for the actual roof line in here. So there was two little screw fixes in there, and someone's actually repaired these before by using filler in there. But there is a little bit of surface rust there which is pitted, and I don't really want to grind that away if I can, because I mean it's part of the roof lining. I don't want to make that any thinner than what I need to do. So I'm just going to pour some of this solution into a container. Don't need a lot of it. Put the lid back on, and basically all you do is you just paint this on, and what happens is after about 15 minutes, where the rust is, it turns it black, and that turning the black is the chemical reaction taking place and converting any rust that's there into obviously a safe material that won't further rust anymore. So that's what we're doing now. So I'm just painting that on. Don't forget, shake the bottle well in there, because there's obviously a few different chemicals in there. So right, so I'm going to leave that and literally go around the car just where I needed to. This again has been sanded down to bare metal, and although this isn't penetrative rust, just in the seam there, I'm just making sure, because I'm not unbolting these wings, and I'm just making sure that if there is any rust there, it's not going to obviously break through the surface of the paint. So treating it and changing it chemically into non-rust in a very awkward position is obviously going to be beneficial for me, because I don't have to remove the wing to do this. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. Right, I don't know whether you can see or not, but here on the roof we've got a little speck of just a little bit of surface rust that's just peeking through there. But how I treat this is that I'm just going to get a little piece of sandpaper, and for the purpose of this exercise I've just got a little sanding block, and I've got some 240 wet and dry paper. So all I'm basically going to do here is literally just have a sand on the area, and this is the procedure. Again, if you've got little spots of rust, I'm just trying to expose them and the metal around it whilst feathering out the actual surrounding paint. Now let's get that there for a minute. Let's get a cloth. Again, this is typical localised rust repairs I'm doing here, but bearing in mind we're doing a whole body respray as well. So, but as you can probably see now that is lovely and smooth, and bearing in mind that little rust nib there is literally below the surface, so I mean I can concentrate on just that little bit of rust just to take away any surface imperfections in the rust and wipe it away again. And as you can probably see now, that area is lovely and feathered out, but I mean the primer will cover that, but for the sake of treating that rust, all I do then, as I said to you, is take this solution and literally just dab it on there and just leave it. And all this is basically doing is ensuring that that rust doesn't break through again. So we'll leave that for 15 minutes, and let's have a look at this other rust here, which I treated earlier on, as you probably know, and where it's going black is actually where it's converted to rust. So everything's going to be okay there, and once you can actually sand this product after you've finished it. And once I've done this, as I said, I'll give it a final sand down, and the filler primers I use will actually cover all this. As you can see, the paint is actually feathered in lovely there, and the filler primer, once you put a couple of coats of filler primer on there and sand it back, you'll get a lovely smooth finish there, and I'll be satisfied that won't be breaking through again at a future date, as I say. So if we would have just sanded that and then filled over it and then painted it, there's a very good chance, because the rust was still active, it would have come back. This stops that from happening. So basically I've gone round the car doing all these little bits. The whole car now is actually, as I said, apart from the front, has had a sand down with 500 wet and dry. Now it's ideal for these sort of things. As you can probably see there, this is where the roof lining obviously meets, and very, very hard to get down there to sand. And although I did get in there, and you can actually get a little file in there as well if you wanted to sand it down with a file, that's been converted as well. And as you can see on that corner there as well, exactly the same thing. That rust has turned, or is turning black. The whole roof has been sanded down. So this basically now, once it's had its final wax and grease remove, is ready for paint. Coming around to the front of the car as well, I haven't done this yet, so I'm going to have to sort of just give this a light sand down. Again, in the places where needed, I've just applied a little bit of filler and that's ready for sanding. But yeah, all the way around, the car is actually been repaired. What I'll do, once I've done all these little rust bits, I'll go around with the primer and make sure that everything is covered up, and just in case it needs a little sand. As I say, this area here, for example, as you might have remembered, I had to put some more filler in there, and there's a couple of pinholes I can see in there, so the primer will probably fill that up, but I will get that done anyway. So I'll re-prime them, and the final sand down should obviously see me okay there. So yeah, it's getting very near the stage of painting all the shell and that. So I've still got obviously the doors, the bonnet lid, and also the trunk to sort out, because there's some work needs doing on the trunk. But I'm getting to the stage now where I'll probably, after I've done this preparation, I'll get that Scotchgard material, the stone chip material, sorry, and I'll mask all a line all the way around the car, and I'll apply that. That goes on and it's black, and that's the sort of thing where I can actually spray the actual gold paint on afterwards. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. So I'm just going to let this go off now, and I'll see you again in a minute. Okay, right, I've just give that a light sand down now, and as you can probably see, everything there that was rust is actually turned black. Don't forget, that was all down to bare metal, that patch in the middle, so that's all gone black now. And if you can fill anything, then obviously put a thin skim of filler over the top. I'm happy with that, as I say, because I'm going to put the high build primer on that. I can't actually feel anything there when I rub my finger over there, but I will just coat it with a little bit of high build primer there, just for a slight rub down, and that'll be ready for paint. Exactly the same with this. As you can see, I've rubbed away most of the well, all of the all this went black, but that obviously only left this area here, for example, and a couple of little spots there, which has actually now been converted. So all I'll do there is I'll put a thin skim of filler, because when I actually ground this down, as you can probably see, some grind marks there in the roof while I was attempting to get this rust out, and I did actually just tap these little bits of rust just down a little bit, so they're just below the surface now. So I'll just put a thin skim of filler there, a little bit of stopper filler and a bit there, and then sand that down lightly with a very fine sandpaper. I'll finish off with probably a bit of 500 or 600, and that will give me my key for the primer. So yeah, that's what we're doing now. Okay then, what I've actually done is gone over all the car with the Cure Rust solution where these little spots was, and anywhere now where I've got bare metal on the show, like here for example, I'm going to actually go around and apply etching primer to the bare metal before I put any filler on the top. What I might do is just to spray these areas in now, and then I will go over with a primer filler, which will be the Acclaim TI product I've got, because it's a nice thick substantial primer and it will take away any little imperfections. So I'm just going to go around now with a wax and grease remover and just wipe off all the residue of the areas that I'm going to treat now. So once I've actually done this, what I'm going to do then is, as I say, prepare the car for priming just these spot areas that I've gone around, and any other areas that need my attention. Leave them, and then I'm going to get on to do the chip guard, so I'll start masking up for that. So out with the etching primer, and let's get on with that. Right, okay, that's all I think I'm going to do today. Tomorrow I'm going to give the car a good clean down, mask off, and then I'll be applying the Acclaim TI filler primer. And once that goes off, what I'll also do then is to mask all the way around the car and apply the chip guard material down the lower part of the car. One more thing I'll mention to you about the Mini. As you know, the Mini failed its MOT when we took it to the MOT. Before I took it to the MOT, one of the things I asked the MOT tester to do was to, or the garage mechanic, was to sort the mixture out, because it was obviously running rich. And he obviously come back and said it failed the MOT on the emissions. It should have been 1,200 parts per million for that age of car, and it come back at 12,000 parts per million of hydrocarbons, which obviously is why it failed. And they told me that it was burning oil, so I literally just took their word for it and parked it up, as you know, over there. Well, I was speaking to my brother-in-law, and he's of the opinion as well, as don't forget this was my initial diagnosis as well, that it was running too rich, the carburation needed to be sorted out. I took their word for it that it was burning oil. It's basically not burning oil, and as you know, that the car starts and the spark plugs were very, very black. They've done no mileage whatsoever. So taking on board what's actually they said, and really with what we know about the car, we start the car up, the car starts without choke because we didn't have a choke cable, which obviously means it's running rich anyway. The car smells rich when it's driving along, and it also smells of petrol. There's no smell of burnt oil whatsoever. So my brother-in-law seems to be of the opinion that it's got the wrong size carb on it, or the carb's definitely not set up correctly anyway. And obviously the symptoms which we've got is below 3,000 revs, the performance is very, very lumpy. The tick over is very lumpy. You've got a definite smell of fuel in the exhaust fumes. No petrol, it's black smoke, just little puffs of black smoke that come out. And obviously when it gets above 3,000 revs, then it takes off. Well, that obviously means that the mixture above that rev range is obviously correct. So the good news is that we're going to sort the carburation out. There's no need for the engine to come out. It isn't burning oil. It starts too well and runs too well for it to be burning oil. Plus it's not burning oil in the exhaust. You'd smell it straight away. The hydrocarbons is obviously down to carburation. That can be repaired. We won't be looking at it yet because Jimmy's obviously skin he just shouted out Jimmy's skin and he's now, let me turn the camera around. As you can see, he's now in Vauxhall Corsa mode. He's cleaning it all up now. He never used to clean our car up, but as I say, so it's good news about the Mini, Jimmy, isn't it? Yeah. The Mini looks like it's going to be okay. The engine's not got to come out. It's pure carburation. Jimmy's all right now. Hope you've enjoyed this little video. Don't forget, we'll put that in the next video. We're going to be painting at least the primer and the stone chip guard in the next video on the Triumph Acclaim. Thanks very much. See you later. Bye bye for now.